It's a bright summer day. The magpies are cawing outside my window, and a rabbit munches on the clover in my yard. Meanwhile, I'm in my office, curtains closed, AC on, wearing a cozy sweatshirt under a blanket while I play Frostpunk, trying to bolster my dismal community to survive in this dystopian survival city builder, where the unrelenting cold and inevitable storm will soon drop to a temperature of negative 150 degrees Celsius. Being Canadian, you might think that I have enough winter each year. However, with high temperatures, sweat, and my skin sticking to everything, summer becomes an overwhelming sensory experience from which Frostpunk and some air conditioning offer an escape. While it might seem strange to turn to apocalyptic games for comfort, sensory overwhelm is common for folks with neurodivergence, specifically ADHD and autism spectrum disorder. People with ADHD often present sensory processing dysfunction in addition to symptoms of inattention, hyperactivity, and impulsivity. Sensory processing refers to the way that individuals manage incoming sensory information, such as noise, temperature, light, or texture. A related concept, sensory modulation, refers to the capacity to regulate and organize the degree, intensity, and nature of responses to sensory input in a graded and adaptive manner so that an optimal range of performance and adaptation to challenges can be maintained. In simpler terms, sensory modulation is the ability to adjust and manage responses to sensory input to support effective functioning. Neurodivergent folks, some folks with disabilities, and people on certain medications can experience either hypersensitivity or hyposensitivity to sensory stimuli, meaning that they either experience an exaggerated response or a lacking or insufficient response. In my case, I am hypersensitive to heat and experience high temperatures with greater intensity, which results in feelings of overwhelm and discomfort. As a result, the cold is much easier for me to navigate. I can always add layers to warm up in the cold. In the summertime, I keep my air conditioning relatively high, even if that means that I need to add more layers of clothing. It's better for me to bundle up and feel cozy rather than feel overwhelmed and helpless in the heat. There's a certain irony to it. My AC and fans are working overtime while the civilians in my little apocalyptic camp are trying to cultivate enough heat to stay alive. In the same way that I'm adjusting my environment for comfort, I build my settlement to have the civilians' homes close to the steam engine and increase their likelihood of survival. I put automatons to work furthest from the steam core because they can operate at full capacity regardless of the temperatures. I find the automatons comforting in their resilience and immunity to extreme conditions. They remind me of the tools we have access to regulate our own environments, such as my air conditioner, which works diligently throughout the summer months. Alenda Chang describes survival horror games as a genre where players are on the defensive in a lawless world where humans and nature are unpredictable. Indeed, Frostpunk is one of these games, requiring the player to impose order to survive, convincing rebels not to abandon the settlement, dealing with unpredictable temperature fluctuations, and sending teams to explore neighboring regions for supplies and other survivors. Chang states that, in these types of games, success may be defined in the barest of terms such as procuring adequate food, water, and shelter. Success in Frostpunk means having enough food, materials, and warm buildings to survive the Great Storm, even if your population dies of sickness and cold in the process. If you fail to provide your civilization with all the resources it needs to survive, the system will collapse. Similarly, without AC and fans in my house, my system will collapse too. Collapse, for our purposes, refers to a system breakdown where it is pushed past the point of no return. It can no longer carry at a specific capacity and loses its ability to adapt. Chang states that we cannot speak of individual collapse, or at least when we do, we mean the organism's entire body failed in a systemic way. Thriving communities, well, thriving for Frostpunk, might be culled from 700 people to 100 after the Great Storm, and yet this is still considered a successful run of the game. It is not the individual that must survive the storm, but the system that must avoid collapse. Only the city matters, not the individual people. As long as you have some survivors left, you win. It doesn't matter how many die in the process. Valuing the system over the individual is a dark reality in Frostpunk, but it speaks metaphorically to the challenges of managing sensory dysfunction. It's quite inconvenient to maintain a sensory-friendly environment, and most of the time there are only a few things you can control to make your experience tolerable, such as blasting the AC in the summertime. It doesn't take away the sun or the sweat when I'm outside, and I will definitely feel overwhelmed many times through the summer. But surviving my own great storm means finding any way to prevent the system from collapsing is an overall success. Frostpunk is a dark game with difficult and morally complex decisions and lingering consequences. The player must decide whether to force children to work, whether to add sawdust to food to extend supplies, and whether to inspire leadership through religious devotion or dictatorial rule. Chang notes that the punishing and vaguely masochistic nature of survival games calls into question the typical pleasures of play. And yet, despite its brutality, Frostpunk paradoxically creates a cozy, grounded playing experience for me. While playing through an extreme climate catastrophe about surviving in the outdoors, I can regulate my indoor gaming experience and my internal bodily environment. Instead of suffering from my own internal stress of dysregulation, I can focus on managing a catastrophe in an external environment where even marginal survival is a success. Games often indulge in the cataclysmic, and players are encouraged to tinker with, exploit, and intervene in game environments. In my case, I can't make it colder outside, but I can help my system recover from the exaggerated response. Do I yearn for an opposite, apocalyptic direction than the one we're heading in with global warming? Would I rather freeze than melt? I think in this case, the question is rather about finding a modicum of control amid catastrophe. Sometimes I wish I were a little automaton, immune to the heat, unbothered by sweat, and soothed by routine. But for now, I'll take comfort in what I can control: a cold room, a warm sweater, and the icy relief of a city on the brink of collapse.